We've been talking about the heart. We've looked at it from its own entity. We know that it beats and it pushes blood through the body, through the lungs. All right, but we're also learning how the heart is a neurological system in itself, kind of like the heart brain. That it has a lot of neuronal connections, that it can act as a brain. It can form memories. It can feel, it can sense, it can transmit electrical information. In fact, there are more connections that go from the heart to the brain than there are from the brain to the heart. We've looked at it as a communication device to our body, in terms of not only electrical communication, but hormonal and releasing neurotransmitters and releasing hormones, and being a powerful gland that can release things like adrenaline or epinephrine, that can release ANF for fluid and electrolyte balance. It can release dopamine for reward, oxytocin, the feel-good, love, social bonding hormone. These are all things that the heart can release. We've talked about the pulsations of the heart in terms of providing information. And we're getting into the electromagnetic field of the heart slowly. We've talked about how the breath can control the heart rate. We talked about the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is something that just keeps on repeatedly coming up. And so I really want you all to be very familiar with that, almost to get to the point where you're bored out of your mind when I talk about it, because you're like, oh, I so know this stuff. That's kind of where I want you to get to. Because it's very important in terms of learning how to regulate stress and bringing resiliency into our system, bringing resiliency into our nervous system, and how the breath and the heart can be an instrument of that resiliency. Simply paying attention to our breath, or focusing on our breath, or having a nice cyclical breath where we're taking a nice breath in and a nice breath out and a nice breath in and a nice breath out, that by simply breathing in and out, we are helping to regulate the autonomic nervous system. Because when we breathe in, we fire the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system. When we breathe out, we fire the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest nervous system. And so every time we breathe, we're activating these systems in a very dynamic, balanced way that we are actually consciously controlling through our breath, right? So this is like probably one of the coolest things that you can do for yourself, is by breathing, you can then regulate your heart rate. You can switch on the sympathetic nervous system when you breathe in, and then you switch on the parasympathetic nervous system when you breathe out. And so it's this sort of dance, right? I see it as a give and take. Here's a little sympathetic, and then here's a little parasympathetic, and then here's a little sympathetic, and then here's a little parasympathetic, and then here's a little sympathetic, and here's a little parasympathetic. And you're doing this with each breath cycle. Okay. And what that's doing is it is increasing heart rate variability, right? We looked at some of those graphs the other day of increased heart rate variability, where you saw a nice curve going up and down, nice curve, where when we have increased heart rate variability, that our system is in balance and is resilient, because the heart is responding immediately to the changing nervous system. and it's not stuck, right? That it's not just the sympathetic nervous system. And so you see it very high and jaggedy and very irregular. If it's stuck in one place, right? If we don't have good balance, let's say we're always stressed and we're stuck in that sympathetically driven state. I'm always feeling like I'm fighting, or right. You ever have those days where you feel like you're fighting the entire world? All right. That's the sympathetic nervous system. Okay. And if you feel like you feel like there's tension and there's anger and there's just frustration and you're clenching your teeth and you're not breathing, right? That's the sympathetic nervous system. It's like, God, this nervous system is just on. Okay. We've got to release that energy somehow, and we don't do it. All right. We do release it with anger, yelling at somebody or whatever it might be. Or we try to release it unnaturally by, consuming alcohol at the end of the day or using some sort of drugs to help decrease the sympathetic, right? But if you're sitting in traffic and you have nowhere to go and you're angry that you're going to be late for your appointment and you're stressed, okay, that's the sympathetic nervous system. That's the fight or flight nervous system that is building up energy for you to fight or run. And yet, what are you doing? You're sitting in traffic. You're not actually expanding the energy that your nervous system is bringing in, right? Now, if there was a tiger that was jumping out at you and you ran out of your car and you left your car there and you ran down the street, that would actually be using the energy of your sympathetic nervous system. Okay. You might feel that way sometimes, right? When you're stuck in traffic, especially in LA. I just want to leave my car here and just start walking. I'll get there faster. That would actually be a good use of the energy that's building up. Okay. So when we feel like we're in that sympathetically driven state, right? We feel frustrated, we feel angry, we feel stressed, whatever it might be. Our system, our body is in that fight or flight response. And so imagine fighting or flighting, but not running or not fighting and just sitting, right? So there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of increased heart rate and blood pressure and stuff like that. And so when you're in that state, the heart rate is very irregular. It's bouncing around quite a lot. There's a lot of jagged lines as opposed to a nice smooth line. And there's lack of resiliency. There's lack of balance. There's lack of balance in the system. Okay. And so we talked about that. We talked about how the breath can increase this resiliency, this balance, simply by breathing in and out in a very cyclical manner, in and out. We're literally we're like exercising the two sides of the autonomic nervous system, right? So imagine that you're saying, hey, I'm going to breathe. And in the breath work that you do, you're actually exercising your nervous system. And you're exercising your nervous system, right? You're bringing one on and then you're resting it. And then you're bringing the other one on and then you're resting it. You're bringing it on. It's just like you're lifting weights. Think of every time that you breathe in, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. You're lifting weights on that. And every time you breathe out, you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system. And so so it's like your left and right arm, right? If you breathe in, you're going to breathe out, hopefully. And so you're going in and out, right? I mean, what a beautiful thing that was created. That naturally in our own breath, we're actually evenly exercising both sides of the system, right? Just through our breath. And so this can increase resiliency. It'll increase heart rate variability. And then that increased heart rate variability, your heart rate will have this very beautiful, like it sort of looks like a sine wave. It has a very beautiful wave that goes up, then it comes down. And then the heart rate goes up, and then it comes down. The heart rate goes up and then it comes down. Okay. And we also talked about the power of emotions and positive thoughts, and how bringing in positive thoughts, appreciation, gratitude, love, whatever it might be, also has an ability to bring in and regulate the autonomic nervous system. Okay. And so now where we're getting into is what we call coherence. And I have a couple things here that I'd like to read. Okay. What are some definitions of coherence? Clarity of thought, speech, and emotional composure. The quality of being orderly, consistent, and intelligible, like a coherent sentence. Right? Have you ever used that word? That sentence was not coherent. I didn't understand anything he said. Synchronization or entrainment between multiple waveforms. And that's kind of where I want to go to. A constructive waveform produced by two or more waves that are phase or frequency locked. Or order within a singular oscillatory waveform. An ordered or constructive distribution of power content within a single waveform, also known as autocoherence. Coherence has several related definitions, all of which are applicable to the study of human physiology, social interactions, and global affairs. The most common dictionary definition is the quality of being logically integrated, consistent, and intelligible, as in a coherent statement. A related meaning is the logical, orderly, and aesthetically consistent relationships among parts. Coherence always implies correlations, connectiveness, consistency, and efficiency, and efficient energy utilization. Coherence refers to wholeness and order, where the whole is greater than the sum of its individual parts. In physics, coherence also is used to describe the coupling and degree of synchronization between different oscillating systems. That's actually where I'd like to kind of dive into a little bit. So in physics, coherence also is used to describe the coupling and degree of synchronization between different oscillating systems. In some cases, when two or more oscillating systems operate at the same basic frequency, they can become in phase. This occurs when, like in a laser, for instance. But the place that you probably have seen it most is with water. If you were to drop, let's say there's a pond, okay, and it's totally flat, and you drop a pebble into the water. The pebble is going to go into the water and it's going to make waves, okay, and you can watch those waves go out. That's a single wave. Okay, what coherence is looking at is a relationship between two oscillating patterns. So if you were to drop a pebble, and let's say you drop a pebble at the same time, two pebbles at the same time next to each other, what happens is that those waves come, right? And if they are in phase, if they meet each other, they can either crest, and let's say they're doing this, right? And then they meet, and what happens? Don't they go and they go whoop? They go much higher. Right? Or they can, if they're out of phase, what happens? This one comes and they As this one goes down, this one goes up, and they cancel each other out. Actually, the waves can actually cancel each other. So we actually call those peaks and troughs. Peaks are the peak, and then troughs are the very bottom. And so when you have two things that are oscillating, okay, there's a waveform that's emanated. There's a waveform that's emerging, and how these things are coming into relationship will define the wave that is then the wave that is created when these two wave patterns collide. In physiology, cross-coherence occurs when two or more of the body's oscillatory systems, such as respiration and heart rhythms, become entrained and operate at the same frequency. When a system, imagine that your body is a system, like a solar system, right? When the system is in coherence, all of the independent systems are working in an orderly fashion. They're working in an orderly fashion, and you may sense in your body, especially as you become more in tune, as you do these practices with body sensations, you may sense that my stomach is feeling a little off today, or I'm having a more difficult time breathing. Or I'm feeling a little bit of chest constriction. Okay. One could say, well, first of all, you want to make sure that it's not an emergency, right? But if it's not an emergency, is sort of ask the question, how is my body functioning from a coherent, orderly system? And so that's sort of the important aspects of that. Okay. When a system is functioning coherently, it's functioning more efficient, it's functioning more optimal, right? So this is actually something that we can start to train our bodies to, since we have our brains, we have our hearts, we have our lungs, we have our intestines. These are all oscillatory systems. We have the pulsation, the movement of the blood through the arteries themselves, the constriction of the lymphatic systems to bring it back to the heart. These are all oscillatory systems that are functioning in the human body, Okay. And what's cool about this is that if you have a way, okay, let's say your heart rate is erratic, right? Bop, 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 bop. Okay, let's say you're at a pond, right? And there's I'll say there's my kid at one side of the pond that's just splashing the water. It's what sort of waveform will that create in the pond? Probably an erratic waveform, right? And so let's say you're sitting on one side of the pond and you're sipping on a sparkling water or something like that. And my kid is on the other side of the pond making these erratic waveforms. And all of a sudden those erratic waveforms come to you. And you're trying to relax. And all of a sudden this erratic waveform comes and you're like, can you stop that? Right? Okay. I don't know if you've ever had these experiences. Or can you stop, right? Because the way what's happening at one side is if it's erratic, if it's not in coherence, is going to, well, regardless of if it's a coherence, but it's going to affect the whole system. Okay. Now let's say I tell my son to relax and just, every 5 seconds he can touch the water with his hand. And he listens and he touches the water with his hand every 5 seconds. Now what happens? Touch the water, and now a waveform will start, right? And now, because I say you can only do it every 5 seconds, you have to do it every 5 seconds. And now there's a rhythm to it. Boom. Now the wave goes, right? And now let's say you're at the other side of the wave and you feel the wave. It's not erratic. It's very consistent. And you might say, oh, this actually feels pretty nice. Okay. And you start kind of going with the wave. Okay. And he continues doing that. The effect that one part of the system has on the other part of the system and how they can match up is called entrainment. So we can actually affect another part of our system based on what our heart is doing or based on what our breath is doing. Okay. So the cool part about this is, let's say you do feel as if you are erratic, right? Like your energy is just everywhere. Like you're having that heart, you're going from, arguing with this person to yelling at this other person to frustrated that you got to do this task to, getting annoyed at your partner because they left the toilet paper on the wrong side, whatever it is, right? And you're just like, something's not right. Okay? Internally, even asking yourself, how do I feel? Is there a sense of cohesion? Is there a sense of coherence? Is there a sense of balance? Is there a sense of order? And your answer would probably be no. Right? Like, I don't feel order. I feel very discombobulated. I feel very just right? Let's restart the day. You ever have those days? Let's press the restart on button on our day by using, when we feel like that, okay? Most of the time what happens is that our breath is out of sync with our heartbeat, which is out of sync with our hormones, which is out of sync with the pulsating vessels. It's out of sync with the digestion. It's out of sync. It's just out of sync. Okay. And so when we recognize that, what can we do? Well, we can do these practices. Okay. And these practices, what happens is that you use your breath as a way of, first of all, you are, right now, you're the little boy or girl in the pond saying, you know what? I'm just going to start sending a very consistent, very repetitive signal to the rest of the pond. Here I go. And it doesn't have to be a positive emotion, although that can do it too. But oftentimes when we feel stressed, it's very difficult to elicit that positive emotion, right? Sometimes it's like, I don't even want to go there. Okay. But what can you do is you can just start to breathe in this very cyclical way. So you breathe in the cyclical way. What then you're doing is, let's say you're in that pond, you're just sending a waveform to the rest of the system. All right. That waveform is going to start to inform the other people that are in the wave, right? It's going to be like, oh, I feel that. I feel that wave. That feels like a very calming wave. If you are on the other side of the pond and you feel a calming wave and you might not be calm, what might happen to you? Well, you might actually feel that wave and actually calm down. Feel some sense of calm in the wave, in the rhythm. All right. So one part of the system starts to find a rhythm, starts to find cohesion, which then starts to inform other parts of the system. Then there's cohesion between, let's say, the heart and the lungs. And guess what happens when there's cohesion between the heart and the lung? Now your respiratory rate and your heartbeat are actually sort of synced. Breathe in, heart rate. Okay. That cohesion then continues to spread through your whole body, okay, and can literally inform the whole body, and what we say, entrain the whole body to this rhythmic pattern, right? And this is what happens, okay? So when you sense physiological coherence, this is a state which is characterized by high heart rate variability, increased parasympathetic activity, so you're going into that rest and digest system, increased entrainment and synchronization between physiological symptoms, and efficient and harmonious functioning of your cardiovascular system, your heart and your lungs, your nervous system, your hormonal system, and your immune system. So there's actually, by bringing in cohesion, by creating cohesion, by creating entrainment between different parts of your body, it's sort of like, here's those waves, right? There's a greater wave that emerges when when two systems are oscillating and they find cohesion. There's a greater wave that emerges through that cohesion. They're synchronized. And there's a greater wave that forms. Now you're informing other parts of the body. You start getting this entrainment, and there's this increased efficiency. There's this stability. There's this order. There's this synchronization of all of our body parts. Isn't this what we want? Right? A full-on, global, whole body, cohesive, functioning unit. Feels like I'm illuminating because of it, right? Okay. Who wouldn't want a harmonious functioning unit? Okay. And the reason we get into this is that because now, okay, go from your breath to your heart, to your hormones and immune system and respiratory system and cardiovascular system, right? And brain and everything. And now you are a full-on, cohesive and trained unit that's walking down the street. Right? And this is where we're going to get to next week. Is then how does this then inform? How I bring cohesion and entrainment into my own system, how can it then affect entrainment and cohesion in a group or in a society or in the world, for instance? In the world. Okay. That's kind of where we're going. All right. So again, using the beautiful breath and respirations, and you might, as you practice this, you might bypass the breath and respirations and just feel the resonance in your body, feel whether or not there's cohesion. Initially, it's really good to, if you're getting into this practice, it's really good to just use the breath. If there's just one system that we can affect consciously, it would be our breath. If we can, the breath is going to inform the heart. Then the breath and the heart will inform other systems. If we can, then we drop in a little nectar of love or appreciation. If we can, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to bring in a positive emotion, especially when we're stressed. Let's go into our practice. Okay, so let's find a comfortable posture. A posture you will feel relaxed, yet alert. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, having a soft downward gaze. Taking 2 or 3 deep breaths and allowing ourselves to be here now. There's nothing in this moment we need to do. We can give ourselves the next 10 minutes to do this practice. Allowing our body to feel supported by whatever surface it's on, whether seated, lying down. Really allowing that surface to take our weight. And just noticing what your present moment experiences. What are you noticing in this moment? You may notice a lot of thoughts running through your mind or emotions that are coming up. You may notice physical sensations in different parts of your body that are grabbing your attention. Some pleasant, some unpleasant. You may notice a combination of thoughts, emotions, or feelings and sensations. And just taking an inventory of your present moment. What is it like? What is your experience right now? And then bringing your attention to your breath and just bringing in a nice, smooth, cyclical breath in and out without any pauses, without holding your breath, going as slowly as you wish, breathing in and out, in and out. And how, regardless of what your body is feeling at this moment, that this is the first step of sending a coherent signal to your body. This is dropping the initial pebble into the lake, affecting the entire system. Bringing a very uniformed, cyclical pattern to your breath. In and out. And without doing anything consciously, your heart is paying attention to your breath. Your heart is on the other side of the lake, taking in this information from your breath, feeling the pulsating waves coming from your breath and responding without you having to do anything consciously. Breathing in and out in a nice, smooth, cyclical fashion. The heart is responding. Slowly, slowly, as we continue this practice, there may be cohesion that occurs between the breath and the heart. With your breathing and your heartbeat. Increasing your heart rate variability with each cyclical breath, and now informing your whole body, informing all your blood vessels, your nerves, your hormonal system, your digestive system, your bones, your muscles, your skin. Bringing that sense of entrainment, order, harmony to your whole body through your breath, informing your heart, creating cohesion, and then informing your whole body. And as you continue to breathe, if you can, bringing in a little love or appreciation or gratitude for yourself for doing this practice today. Sending some love and appreciation to your body for everything it's done to support you today. And knowing that the emotion that you're feeling of love or appreciation is resonating right in with your breath and your heartbeat, increasing that sense of cohesion even further, and training the whole body, increasing order and harmony between all of your bodily functions. in this moment. And as we bring this meditation to a close today, noticing how you feel in this moment. Has it changed in any way from when you started your meditation? Is there a sense of bringing this practice of cohesion into your daily life? Allowing your whole body to pulsate, to resonate in a cohesive, orderly fashion, illuminated by the light within, and sharing your light with the world. And now taking 2 or 3 deep breaths, and feeling your feet on the floor or whatever surface they're on. Opening your eyes if your eyes are closed. Reorienting yourself to your room and surroundings. Stretching if you feel like you need to stretch. And just taking a moment to reflect on your practice.